There have been clashes outside a South African high school where people are protesting against racism. The demonstrators accuse the establishment of discriminating against black students. Now, tear gas was used outside the Cape Town school, which allegedly held a graduation event where only white pupils and teachers attended. The school denies this and says that the function was private. Famida Miller has more from near the school in Cape Town.
A number of EFF members, about 2,000 of them in fact, tried to move closer to the school. You'll see behind me, they're now behind a police barricade, but to keep them back, police once again fired tear gas and stun grenades. They've also used water cannon to prevent these protesters from approaching the school. They say only 500 protesters are or would be allowed through, and this is why we see this police barricade and this heavy police presence. Protesters here have in fact been quite peaceful, and they've also accused police of being heavy-handed. They're also, apart from targeting the school, they're also angry with police, saying that they're racist and they wouldn't respond in the same manner to white protesters, or if marchers were white, it wouldn't be the same scenario. So people here are angry. And ultimately, the target is Brackenfell High School, which they accuse of racism. This goes back to a function that was held, a year-end function for final year students. Once the official dance, an end-of-year function, was cancelled by the school because of COVID-19 restrictions, it appears as if students had their own private function. This is what the school is saying. But there are black students at the school who say they've been discriminated against, and none of them were invited to this function. They weren't allowed to attend. We've also heard a number of former and present students say that this goes back years, and this is a school where there's been a lack of integration, a lack of black teachers, and there's a greater problem of racism at the school. The school has denied that, but has also admitted that some work has to be done, in that they're now listening to how black students feel.
Well, let's speak to Dewa Mavhinga. He's the Southern Africa Director at Human Rights Watch. Joins me now via Skype from London. Good to have you with us on the programme, sir. I mean, sometimes we can view a situation and think it's been blown out of all proportion. From your understanding of what's happened at this particular school, what conclusion are you drawing?
Well, what is clear is that there was an incident in which black students were excluded from a graduation ceremony. And what needs to happen is for the South African authorities to lead into an independent investigation into exactly what happened. There is need for sensitivity in dealing with race issues. So the authorities must establish what happened and ensure that there are no incidents of racism that are tolerated, particularly given...
Sorry to interrupt. When we talk of South Africa and its long history of racial injustice, it's obviously a very sensitive subject, as you said, and that we thought that might have been resolved after the end of apartheid. But the issue of race and racial injustice continues to simmer. Why?
Well, partly because South Africa remains a deeply divided society, and some of the race issues have not been resolved. What happened was that minority white rule ended in 1994, but the healing process is far from being complete. So there is need for the authorities to continue to do more. And also, in schools or private spaces in the public, there is need for more action to ensure integration and healing, so that we address these deep-seated divisions, race divisions, and also elements of xenophobia that have not been resolved to this day. And, acts of continued segregation should not be tolerated.
It is bizarre in the fact that the Rainbow Nation has not been able to reconcile white and black communities, considering the ANC, which is a majority black political party, has actually been in charge of government for nigh on 3 decades. Do you think they would have sorted this by now?
Well, certainly much more remains to be done, and the great work that was done by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission at the end of apartheid in 1994 was perhaps it did not go far enough in ensuring accountability if there was truth-telling, but perhaps not so much about accountability and ensuring that the divisions, the inequalities are resolved once and for all. So there is need for the ANC and other political parties in South Africa to take race issues very seriously, and the steps that require to be taken to heal South Africa and make it truly a rainbow nation and not just at the level of rhetoric.
There are obviously deep-seated problems. If I just bring in one particular case that happened in 2016, a white man called Brandon Huntley was granted asylum in Canada based on an argument that whites were disproportionately affected by crime in South Africa, sort of slightly based on the race issue. That ignited debate around equality and fairness, and that all South Africans were affected by crime, discrimination or injustice. So sort of with white, black and Indian communities feeling aggrieved at any point in time, one wonders how this is ever going to get solved.
Well, the South African authorities should prioritize race issues and addressing that and ensuring that there is no one who is left behind, or that they do not completely ignore, the rights of minority groups, including the white minority, now that there is a black majority government. But it means there is a lot of work, not just for the government, but for the communities themselves. And also a need not to go back to the times of segregation, to the times of apartheid, where racism was legalized. There is need to focus on building a truly rainbow nation that South Africa can be.
We'll see what does happen. It's always good to get your input. To Dewa Mavhinga from Human Rights Watch. Thanks for joining us from London, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.